Hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. So, no questions, right? One quick announcement. Just after the class today, I will post the CSS quiz, and that should be due tomorrow, same timing, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, so that we can discuss answers after in the class at the start of the class tomorrow. So that's one notice for tomorrow, and I will post the CSS quiz just after this class or this session today, probably around 9 o'clock Eastern. So if you don't have any question regarding CSS, which we have covered, let me just give you a very fast recap. So I started with background, talked about this. I already added background size, so you can have now the auto, which will be whatever browser can apply depending on the container size, and the length, where you can apply a combination of width and height, space separated, and of course you can use percentage, pixel, em, whatever. The other string property is cover, contain, and when you use cover, I think we already saw the examples yesterday, your image will, or the background image will be scaled to cover entire background area. In case of contain, yes, it will be scaled to, and it will try to cover entire background area, but it will also have its original aspect ratio. So in case of contain, it will not move away from its original aspect ratio. Of course, then this is the shorthand. Remember that this background size is a new property in IE and CSS3 property, so of course it's not part of the shorthand. So that has to be applied separately. What else? Then of course we went through image sprites, how to combine images, and then of course if you have smaller images, and you can convert them to data URI as well, and it is supported in IE8 plus, so you should be good. Max and min, especially with the width and height. Then of course we talked about gradients, and I assume you would practice with all this. I mean, rarely you get to use gradients in your normal e-commerce applications if you are going that way, but usually you should be having an understanding so that you don't depend on images. In the latest browsers, you have compatibility for showing CSS3 gradients as well, and they are not just the linear, they are radial gradients as well, or repeating gradients, so that's also fine. In case of transform, so yep, you can use various transformation functions or transform functions like rotate, scale, skew, and translate. And then also in case of transition, if you want to change or to have some sort of animation between two different states, go with transition. And of course we saw all the animatable properties. If you want some sort of infinite, or you want to define your own animation, then again you have to use keyframes to define the animation and then use it using animation property. Both of the transition, the transform, or all of three actually. Transform may require vendor prefixes, transition as well, and animation of course. These are newer properties and they require all this sort of vendor prefixes. What else? Then of course how to handle IE specific style sheets or CSS. So we saw some examples. The one is to use conditional statements, or sorry, conditional comments, or whatever you call it. Whenever you want to load something specific to a specific version of IE, use conditional statements, something like this. So here you can always include an external CSS file which is just for IE. For example, in this case it is for IE7, and you are asking load only when the version of IE is less than 8 in the current browser. Or you can write some inline CSS as well. And then of course you have the IE specific hex as well. I won't say go with this approach, but you should be following the third approach, which is use all this conditional statement to set some sort of root class or CSS class on the root level, and then use that class in conjunction with your normal classes or normal selector. It can be anything. It can be Element, it can be any combination. The only thing important here is it has the root ancestor IE6 in this case, assuming that this was IE6 browser, and in this case the IE8, because let's say it was opened in IE8 browser. So you will be able to fix most of the issues with IE. Then we started talking about the responsive web design. So two important things: media types and media queries. Combined, people call it media queries, but I would go different way, because media types are supported in all the browsers. Media queries are CSS3 features, and whenever you say max width or min width with some values or dimension, then of course it is a media query supported in IE9 and all other browser, IE9 plus and all other browsers. So we can use that one as well, or you can specify, or you can write entirely different CSS and load it depending on these conditional elements. So for example, you are asking browser to load some other CSS, some other one CSS actually, only when this document is being viewed on screen, not on the printer. And then of course when the dimensions are, or dimension of this device or the display are, min width and max width are between 701 to 900 pixels, so you can limit that one as well. You don't have to use both of them if you are following one approach, which is called the mobile first approach, and we talked about that one as well. So in case of a mobile first approach, you design for the mobile first and then progressively enhance it for the tablet or desktops on PCs and larger devices in the increasing order of breakpoints. So that helps. In case of viewport setting, of course, if you are trying to develop a responsive website, a responsive web app, you have to use these viewports. And then of course I would go with the later, because I don't want user to zoom on my page, because I am making sure that content is properly placed according to display width or display dimensions. If you are using Bootstrap, then of course right now you will be using Bootstrap 3.1. So this is for the older one, just to have an understanding that previously they used to have two other breakpoints for the smaller devices, and starting with 3.0 they just have 3 breakpoints, meaning 4 different type of styles or 4 different type of layouts on the page. Everything below 768, well, that's a phablet, or no, not the phablet, that's a smartphone actually. Anything in between, some kind of tablet, anything in here, some smaller wide screen probably, and then everything above that is your laptops. Right now you have the laptops in the range of 1366 at the minimum, right? So some notebooks, some smaller tablets, even in case of iPad, it will come much above that. So yep, that's all. Of course, if you don't want to use Bootstrap but still you want to use the grid only, you can, and you don't like grids, 12 grids or 12 columns of Bootstrap, there are other options as well, like 1140 pixel responsive CSS. One important thing regarding to support IE6 or 8, because if you are using responsive web you are designing your page as responsive, you have to make sure that it should at least look nice on these browsers as well. If you don't use the respond.js or include it for IE6 and 6, 7, 8, I mean, they will start rendering a mobile layout on that one, because they don't understand the media queries involving min or max width. So they will just render the mobile version even on the larger displays. You don't want to have that. Of course, I mean, they will lack many more things in CSS, but still, you don't want to allow your users to see that much mess on their display. So of course you can always use respond.js, which will mimic this min width, max width CSS using some JavaScript, and load it conditionally. You don't want to load it for other browsers which works properly. So load it conditionally for any browser less than equal to IE8. Just load the respond.js library as well, just like we do that for HTML5 shape. Yeah. So that was the CSS that we ended yesterday. I already uploaded the updated version of this presentation on box.com along with the recording, so you should be able to start or move forward with your projects at least. The deadline is again the Friday, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 days from now. Let me know if you have any question. Otherwise, yep, let's start JavaScript. Okay, so yep, that's the JavaScript. So again, it was developed by Brandon Ike, who was Mozilla's CEO for 10 days, 4 months back, and then had to step down for some of the remarks that he made probably in 2000, late 2000s. So, but yeah, that's another story. He developed JavaScript, as you heard Douglas Crockford, within a week or something by combining best features, or by trying to combine best features of 3 different languages, and that was in 1995 when he was working at Netscape. Now, at this time, JavaScript is much more or much bigger than what he thought or anybody would have thought at that time, even Microsoft. So now it is maintained by uh, ECMA, which is European Computer Manufacturers Association. I don't know why there is no American name here, just some European. But yeah, that's how it is maintained as of now. And the standard that was developed at that time is ECMA 262. Still, that is the standard, ECMA 262. Of course, it has some revisions, and those are the revisions we call ECMA 4, 5, 6. ECMA 5 was released 2 years back. So if you go to the Wikipedia, you will find out different versions of ECMA. The initial specification is of course 262, where this, yep. So ECMA 5 was released in 2009 and updated in 2011. The browsers are still trying to find compatibility for or working on the drafts mentioned in ECMAScript 5.1. 6 should be there next year, and of course it will be much bigger change in JavaScript, but yep, you should be prepared for that one as well. I don't know what they're doing in 7th stage, but yeah, they will improve so many things. And even you heard Douglas Crockford regarding several of the changes, and especially handling some of the security reason with the cross-site scripting XSS. Again, so why JavaScript is so popular right now that you are having training? In the previous, or when I started JavaScript, which was in 2007, the fall of 2007, I usually started with form validations, and most of you may have also started using JavaScript for the form validation on the UI. Well, that was very small purpose. Within few months, I learned about Ajax, and then I started using Ajax since the start in JavaScript. I'm not sure about others, but yeah, that's how I started with JavaScript. So from the start, I considered JavaScript as, kind of liberation from the hard-coded language like Java or C or C++. It always gave me some kind of feeling that, okay, I can do anything in JavaScript because it's so free and it can accommodate so many things in it. We will see all those features here. There are no restriction on what type of variables you have to use, your functions, what should they return, what about not passing parameters to the function and still being able to call those functions. So a lot of things we will go through today and tomorrow. And please make sure that you attend all the JavaScript. Probably there will be 5 JavaScript sessions. So just attend from today until Friday. We won't go through more than 2 hours, but still, attend all these sessions. So again, JavaScript, well, of course, it's a powerful, and the most important keyword here is interpreted language. Unlike Java or C, which are compiled languages, this is an interpreted language. So of course, you don't compile your JS file into some sort of different case like you do in case of Java. You compile your .java files to .class files or the binary files, whatever you call it, the source code. In this case, in case of JavaScript, it is interpreted language, and that is the reason when something breaks in that entire line, the browser will just get out from there without even compiling, or without even executing further down the line. So that is the reason it's an interpreted language. Probably when you started learning about computer, there you must have understood the difference between interpreter, a compiler, all different things. So this is the interpreted language. And of course, mostly we use it for the web, but these days, again, the server is in the bold for the reason that for the last 3 years, since the Node.js started, now you can have Node.js based servers as well, and they are very powerful, much more powerful for processing thousands or multiple or request multiple times than your Apache or Nginx servers or your threaded servers. So in case of Node.js, it's very powerful. Lots of companies are using it. the companies which are not able to use it, probably they don't have your developers who understand JavaScript very well, so that they can be relied to work on the JavaScript server as well. The only other problem is, I think, the versioning. Usually when something is in production or stable, it starts with 1 point something. Node.js is still in 0.10, so most of the companies, including my company, thinks that they are kind of in beta mode. I'm not sure that's true, but still, this is one of the things. So again, but the thing is, you have to write entire backend in JavaScript as only, and that's how Node.js works. Now, another thing regarding Node.js, or if you have hard time figuring out what is Node.js, so it is a platform, entirely a platform, just like you have Java Virtual Machine or JRE. What does it do, your Java Virtual Machine? Well, it picks up the Java source code, right? Or let's say it's compile code, .class files, and then execute them, right? And you can write any sort of backend into that one, or if you try to write applets, which are for the front-end part, you can also write those as well. That's for the Java Virtual Machine. Then how does Node.js plays? Well, Node.js essentially uses some sort of JavaScript runtime, which is very famous, the Chrome's JavaScript runtime, which is called V8. Probably it was inspired by Audi V8 engine. Of course, it's very fast, one of the fastest JavaScript engine, and that's what your Chrome uses on this, of course, while rendering and then execute. Well, not rendering, executing. For rendering, it uses Blink. So, yep, this is the V8 JavaScript engine, which is used by Node.js as well. And then again, as I said, it is a platform, not sort of some sort of limited thing like a server or some library or something. It is an entire platform. Whenever you think about Java, you think about Java Virtual Machine first. If you have to run anything written in Java, you have to have Java Virtual Machine, and you have to install JVM on your machine, your servers, everywhere, right? Just like that, you have to install Node.js as well, and it's a platform again. It requires, or well, it has inbuilt functionality to connect or to use the V8 JavaScript engine. It's open source via Google. So yep, that's done. And then of course it can be used for writing your backend as well. You can create servers just like you can create in Java using socket communication. You can do all things here as well in case of Node.js. Now of course you have to have solid understanding of JavaScript, which most of the people say they have, but I haven't found more number of people having the proper understanding versus they say they have understanding. So that's the issue with JavaScript. It is world's most misunderstood programming language. And here is the statement by the same guy, the Douglas Crockford. You can go through this entire document, and you have already went through his talk. So that's why I gave the video from this guy. He is the guy who has created the specification for JSON. He is involved in the ECMAScript, so this is not some bunch of some UI developer. He is the architect of JavaScript in some sort. And most of the new changes, I mean, he is part of all those new changes at ECMA. So he's part of the ECMA community. So again, this is world's most misunderstood programming language. The reason is that I think is mostly nobody starts learning JavaScript straightforward, unlike me. So I started learning JavaScript before I went to Java or C++. I don't know why. So most of the developers, they come from C++, C or Java background. And when they are very hard-boiled into those kind of languages which require hard-coded, I mean not hard-coded, but yeah, very strict languages, so requires the type compatibility and everything between the things that you pass and the variables that can receive the returns from the functions, everything. So here in case of JavaScript, you will find, well, it's very free language. I mean, it will allow you to do lots of things, but still at the same time, you will feel that, okay, it is not following the rules that I learned while using Java or C++. That's true, because this is a different language than all those backend languages. Now, another thing is, mostly that I have found this with the people, I mean, first, let's say somebody has learned C, then he or she went to learn C++. Now, the most important question anyone would ask at that time was, what is the difference between C++ and C? and they will say, okay, one has class structure, the other has nothing. One supports polymorphism or object oriented, or the other is something else. So there was this different sort of comparison, right? Then they started learning Java, let's say. Now the most important question now was, what is the difference between Java and C++? Again, the points were same. One was having it, one was not. So that was kind of comparison that we already knew, or that we started talking about. When you come to the JavaScript, you will see you can't compare these two languages, let's say Java and JavaScript, just on those points, because these two are completely different languages, unlike Java and C or C++, which are kind of similar in case of most of the things. Of course, they are not exactly similar, but at least for example, in case of inheritance, at least inheritance are almost similar, except one part, multi-level or multi-inheritance. So for that purpose, it's not good to compare Java with the JavaScript every time, but yeah, you have to find, or you have to understand how they work differently. So that's why people get confused. What is happening in JavaScript, they can't understand, and that is the problem with most of the experienced Java or the backend developers. So even in my company, I will give some examples. Like, I mean, we have people or developers who have 10 years, 15 years of working in Java or in some other backend language, but when you talk something about JavaScript, they just freak out. They say, well, that's language that I don't want to talk about. It's like, I don't know, some atom bomb nobody wants to catch. So that's why you have good opportunity right now to understand this language, and if you have already known something about JavaScript, I mean, pretty good for you. You will be in more than 3/4 of the times you will be in the lead phase in case of if you start using JavaScript, because most of the times in your company you won't have resources or developers who understand JavaScript very well, so you can be the lead in that case, and that's what happens with my company as well. So yeah, after this 15 minutes of philosophical garbage, let's start talking about JavaScript. So again, it's usually called this, not usually, but the name is ECMAScript, but yeah, there are other dialects of ECMAScript as well, like LiveScript. I think it's still there, I don't know. It was similar. JScript, so Microsoft decided to create something new for itself. Of course, as usual, Microsoft failed in the web. The ActionScript, which is still there, I think it's for Adobe. It is controlled by the Adobe, and mostly it is used, I don't know where, probably in Flash, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, JavaScript is the one that is being used by all of the browsers, and now you have support for JavaScript in the small devices as well. It's like your thermostat. So previously they used to use Java, now they will be falling to JavaScript as well. Just like the Nest thermostat company, which sells the thermostats with user interface. So of course they are using JavaScript there. Anyway, so coming back to our requirements, so what it can do on the web pages. So of course, lots of things. It can dynamically create, delete, modify, or in some case, I mean, change entire DOM structure if you want of your HTML document. What else? Of course, you can change styling of the HTML elements. You can create the document on the fly here. You can just send the empty body tag from the backend in your JSP, and then just load the JavaScript. Using JavaScript, you can create entire DOM structure. You can style it properly. You don't need anything else. But of course, that will be too much code. So we have to find a good balance between these two. The other one is, of course, the most important thing for the web is to allow event handling. I mean, users are not just here for seeing some movie or something like that. They will like to click, mouse over some item, search something, all these different things on your page, on your application. They want to interact with your application. So you have to have some sort of capability where you can bind event handlers to what happens when I click this. You can tell browsers what happens when I click this computer or this server. So you can tell the browsers to do that, and you can ask browsers to execute some functions which are actually called the event handlers on some events. So yeah, that's how you can bind event handlers. We will figure out how to do that. Of course, the starting point of JavaScript is always the form validation, and then now we have the newer features, like we have gone through about web storage. Yep. So we can handle browser storage as well, including cookies, all these things, and then of course caching as well. We can maintain that one as well. Handle, of course, the most important part why JavaScript got the rebirth in 2005 was because of the Ajax. And as you heard Douglas Crockford saying something like, in 2000 there was some Forrester research announcement, yeah, JavaScript is dead, and probably Microsoft believed, and they disband, or they did disband the entire IE team, and that's why I think the reason IE still lags, because they lost 5 years when everybody was working on JavaScript. So yep, Ajax, most important thing for the modern web development, the Ajax. So we will talk about what is Ajax, which is the asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Sorry. So yeah, you can handle async request calls and response mechanism as well via JavaScript. Pretty much anything under the sun, we can do it now. So coming back to how to include or how to use JavaScript in your web pages, so you have to just use either some external JavaScript file using script tag. You just specify the SRC, or if you want to write some inline JavaScript, then of course use the same script tag, this time no SRC tag, and write your inline JavaScript code here. Now, as I have been talking about two different places for scripts, you can have in the head of the document as well as in the body of the document as well. Now the thing, where should we put it? So again, I have been through this discussion many times with all of you, so we will have one more shot on that. So where to include, whether in the head or in the body. So blah blah blah. So script blocks parallel downloads, doesn't matter if they are coming from the same host or not, and of course it delays rendering of the page. You don't want to make your users wait for 2 more seconds and probably 5 more seconds on the mobile until your JavaScript is downloaded properly. So that's not what you want. So put JavaScript files as the last element of the body, so that they will be loaded, or the download will start only after rendering the page, which is good. And then of course don't forget to put styles in the head, because they are needed for the rendering. So for that purpose, put styles in the head, while scripts just before ending the body element. Now there's another feature called deferred script. So there is one attribute called async. Usually it's a new feature, not implemented in all the browsers, but I think you can use async here, and then browser will say, well, okay, I will download this script whenever I have time or whenever I am free, or kind of asynchronously means it will start requesting, but of course won't wait for downloading to finish for that particular script. Now if you can use that async attribute, you are saying to the browser that I don't care when you get this script and execute it, right? In that case, you can always put at the bottom as well, because both will be behaving similarly. And then again, as I said, async is not supported in most of the browsers at this time, especially IE or versions. So of course, you can always go with this foolproof approach, where you just load your JavaScript at the end, same behavior. So in every language, we start with, okay, let's ask users input about, in case of for example C++, you have C in, C out. In case of Java, you have system.out.println or system.in, all this kind of thing. Now what do we have in case of JavaScript? Well, nothing. So of course we don't have input or output functions in JavaScript. The most important friend for you in debugging is console.log. And what it does actually, when you execute something in JavaScript and say console.log, it will print everything in the browser console. So something like here, I have some arrows as well, get rid of this, and then whenever you execute something in your JavaScript, you use console.log, it will be here. So you can see what is there. So many things, and even the console.log in case of Google is the most powerful console.log, unlike IE where it is stupid, and in case of Firefox where, well, they are working. So Chrome has the most powerful implementation of console.log, but don't depend on this one. Well, you should depend on this one, except if you are targeting IE8. So in case of IE8, some weird issues there. Console.log is not available in IE8 until you open the developer tools of IE. That's strange. Your users will not be opening console.log, will not be opening developer tools. They will be just going to the website if they are using IE8. In that case, it won't be able to understand what is console. It will throw exception and your JavaScript will just stop executing. So for that purpose, whenever you send your code into production, get rid of all the console.log from your JavaScript. And of course, if your application is client heavy, or even with the normal JavaScript, you will have lots of console.log, and how to get rid of all of them? Well, we have Grunt for that. It will automate so many things for you, so we don't have to do that. But if you want to do it manually, just comment out all the console.log in your code before releasing your code into production or in any test environment. So that's one thing, because you don't want to, of course, worry about this IE8 issue, or even for normal feature, if you are trying to log so many things, why just stuff so many things on the browser which is already handling your application? So that's the console.log that you can use. Now we'll always be using this for this entire session, so you will get to know about this. Again, JavaScript is a case sensitive language, just like your Java or C or C++. It doesn't require actually semicolon, but I would say just use it. It's a best practice. When you do the minification, of course it will remove the semicolon, but just for the sake, use it at the end of the statement, of course. So any doubt in this introduction of the JavaScript? Otherwise we can move forward to variables, or how to declare variables or data types. Okay, no doubt. Good. So let's talk about variables and data types in case of JavaScript. So of course, how to declare variable in JavaScript? So just use var keyword. That's it. So we say something like var first name. So of course, first name is declared. Of course, not initialized, just only declared. And var first name, you can also use some kind of initialization. That's possible, and address and CD. I mean, this other kind of variables, not kind, other variables. So of course, you have to use var at all sort of variable declaration. And what are the pitfalls of not using var? Well, we will go through that in detail probably after a few, probably tomorrow. I'm not sure if we can do it today, but still, always use var for declaring variable. If you don't use var, you are messing up big time. Now the first data type, well, not the data type, I would say, well, okay, data type, because they are not exactly the data type. So the first one is undefined. What is undefined? So it is a primitive data type, I would say. It means that the value, also the variable has been declared, but it has never been initialized, and of course it has no type. And you can assign data type, undefined programmatically as well to the variable, but I would suggest don't do that. And let's try to see what is this code doing here and why I'm saying don't do that. So let's go to editor. So this is says your code goes here. F12, we have the playground ready. Let's play. So let's declare some variable and try to print what is this. So of course it says, okay, I have to run this first. It says undefined, right? The reason is when something you have just declared but not initialized, it is undefined by default. JavaScript will put that data type kind of thing onto that variable. If you want to check whether your variable is undefined or not, so the best way is to use this conditional statement or this operator saying type of, and then you say, well, if you can just say console.log and set type of A. So you will see one string here again. Now you see this is little gray and this is dark black, or black is always dark, so black. So the difference is this is the value and this is a string, because type of returns a string always. So that's why you're comparing with string here. And then why we are using single quotes, double quotes, what about double quotes, we'll talk about when we discuss string data type. But at this time, if you want to check anytime whether what is the if your variable is undefined, then of course you can use this way. So it will of course print the undefined in this case, because you are trying to say whether it is undefined. So this is the way. First type of first name of course equals to, and then use undefined, which is a string in this case. Now can you assign it to a variable programmatically? Yes, you can. So for example, you say 10, right? So now it will be 10. Of course the type of A is now no longer undefined, it is a number. We'll see what is a number data type, but still at this time it is saying 10. Now you want to just deallocate. Well, you don't do that, because here as well you have garbage collector just like in Java. But let's say you want to nullify it again, that kind of thing, or just want to define, or just want to set it to undefined. So of course you can use something like this. Now it is undefined, and if you try to print it again, it will say undefined like this. So yep, you can do that. Normally, or I wouldn't suggest to manually assign undefined to a variable. Keep it on the JavaScript to handle this. If you want to nullify something, some variable, some object, in that case use another thing, which is null. So sorry, in case of null, it's another data type which is really an object. So it means that variable exists, but the value is not known, and of course it can also be assigned to a program, to a variable programmatically. So just like undefined, here as well you can assign it programmatically. JavaScript will never assign something a null, okay, unless the function returns somewhere, but not assign. It will not assign null to a variable like this. It can always assign undefined to uninitialized variables like in the previous case. But here, if you want to nullify something, just to put, or just to put it as null, you can just assign it to null. And that's why I prefer undefined assignment to the JavaScript, and it will handle it for you. If you want to nullify something, just use null and then assign it like this. Now, what is the difference between undefined and null? So we have seen this is undefined, right? So if you try to do something like this, let's see what is the difference between these two console. So the first one say of course undefined, the second one is null. These are the values, and let's try with the type of here, and type of here as well. So let's get rid of this, and then you will see the first one says it's an undefined data type. The second one say it's an object, because it's a null. So again, null is an object, or null is an object. We will talk what are objects here, but it is an object actually, which is just referring to memory location, or the lowest memory location. In case of undefined, well, it's a primitive data type just like object. But again, null has a special meaning in case of most of the languages, including JavaScript. So this is the same. Again, I would say when you want to nullify something, use null and not use undefined here. Keep undefined separate from using here. So here is next we will move to strings. Again, what are the strings and how we can use strings to assign variables some characters or some words or some sentences, whatever, especially the strings. So of course you can use the string constructor like this, or you can directly assign it something like this. Now both are good. I would go with this approach, and the reason is I will tell you. So if you, for example, say something like this, and let's see what do we see here. Of course even Plunker will say, hey, do not use string as a constructor. The reason is whenever you want to get the value again, for example, you want to use this value of first name, you can't just say give me the value of the first name, which you may be thinking, okay, give me the JavaScript. It will give you the string object, not here. Yeah. So it will give you this string object. That's what I mean. This is not what you want. You want the exact value. Just for that purpose, if you are using constructor, then you have to say, or you have to use a method on that object, which is value of. Sorry, and then only you will be getting the value. Most of the times you don't have time to do that. So usually all of the developers, I would say, they will just go with this approach, and then of course you can use it anytime. So yeah. Now JavaScript is very smart. It will understand what type of variable it or what type of data that you are trying to put in. And of course here is no strict typing like in case of Java or C or C++, where you say, well, this variable has to be integer or string or boolean. In case of JavaScript, there is no data type that you use to declare variable. You just say var, that's it. A variable, this is a variable, that's it. And this var is just for scoping purposes, nothing else. But when you put some data, JavaScript will understand what type of content it is. It is a variable, it is a string, it is a number, it is a boolean, something else, or object. It will just initialize your variable accordingly. So you don't have to worry about all this constructor specific assignments or initialization, not assignments. So you can just not use it, just use something like this, and that is clear in case of numbers everywhere. So again, just like in other languages, we have methods on string, which are length, index of, substring, lowercase, uppercase, trim, caret. Just like Java, I think most of all of these methods are available in Java as well. Length will give you the length of the string. Index of will be able to find out particular index of the index of that particular character in that string. Substring, lowercase, uppercase. Of course, trim will wipe out leading and trailing white spaces. If you want to figure out what is the character in that particular index, you can get that one as well. So all of them are available in JavaScript as well, and they are natively available. You don't have to. Okay, this is not available in IE8, and I'm not sure about this as well. But yeah, in the current browsers, all are natively available in JavaScript. You don't have to use any library or like jQuery or anything like that. Now another question is regarding the quotation marks. What should we use, double quotes or single quotes? Well, go with one. So of course JavaScript is not like Java, where if you use single quotes it becomes character, and then you can only have one character, otherwise it will be character array. For strings you have to use double quotes. That's all in Java. Here you can use single quotes for your string or double quotes as well, the same thing. And then I usually go with the single quotes in case of JavaScript, and there are a few exceptions which I will talk about probably tomorrow in JSON only. So, or in this such cases where what you are doing is you have another string JavaScript and you want to keep these quotes while printing it. So let's say, I mean, this is very easy explanation. So something like console.log. So of course if you want to keep the double quotes, then of course you have to use some other sort of quotations here, and that's why I go with the single quotes. But what if you want single quotes inside? In that case you have to use double quotes outside. Otherwise because right now if I use single quotes, for example here as well and the outside as well, it will break the string, because JavaScript will say, well, this is one string, now what is this J? So that's what it's saying, unexpected identifier. Because if you started with single quote and you are ending somewhere, JavaScript will think that okay, you are ending it here, what is happening now and why there is one more thing. So just to avoid all these issues, go with one of the approach, but when requires, just change your approach. I usually go with single quotes unless it is required, for example in this purpose. So here you can have single quotes inside as well, because if you go with the approach like this, you have to escape all these characters, something like this, to get this behavior. Who has time to put two backward slashes? They are not even available properly. Where is that? Above enter. Okay. So yeah, use any approach, everything will work. You have to just figure out what suits you better. I always go with the single quotes, except in some exception. Now this is all about string. What else? So we have boolean. Well, booleans are very, well, everything is interesting in JavaScript, but yeah, booleans have much higher level of interesting. So again, you can have boolean. Now you want to initialize boolean, so you can use the boolean constructor as well, and then really it will say it's a boolean, that's it, no initial value, no true, no false. Then you can initialize in the similar constructor fashion here as well, and then you are saying the initial value, let's put it true, just like you do here. Now problem with this approach is again the same. If you want to get the value of my var, you have to use value of function on that my var object. Now how to be simple? Well, just don't use this. Just assign values directly like true and false, and remember these are keywords or tokens or whatever you call it. These are not string. These are not double or single quoted. These are just the keywords that will be meaning true and false. So let's try with this, and then this is the most interesting part as far as data types are concerned. So let's say, what is this guy? If you just do like this, and what do we get? So if we say something like that, and then it will say, well, it's a boolean, I don't know the value. Okay, let's pass true, and then it will say, okay, it's again boolean, because you can't just have value here, like you have to use value of. So it will say true. What about the previous case? It will say false. Good. Something else. Now you don't have time to, of course, do all this. You can directly assign values like this, and in that case you don't even have to use value of operator. You can just say, tell me if the value is true. Of course it is true now, and then it is false. That is also good. Now this is the case. Now what is this line saying? Well, whenever you try to evaluate any condition which results in 0, -0, null, blank string, undefined, or not a number. We will discuss what is not a number. It is a special construct returned by number when you try to pass something, but forget about that right now. If you use any of this in conditional or where you want to evaluate all this, they will all evaluate to false. Evaluates. It should be evaluate. Anyways, they will all evaluate to false, including false, of course. Why? Well, let's see. So this is undefined as of now, right? Something like this. Then you say my var, what happened here? Equal to 0, and you try to print it again. You say my var is equals to -0. Yep, there is -0 in case of JavaScript as well. What else? Yep, even if you say something sort of null, and even the blank string is false in case of JavaScript. If you try to evaluate those things, when you put anything in the if condition here, you are evaluating that particular condition or statement or whatever. Now all this, and of course including false as well. Now this will not print anything, because we have to put, since they will all evaluate to false, you can see it will not print anything here even after executing. The reason is you need true condition to print anything in this case. So I'm just gonna say negation or negative, or not negative actually, not, and then it will print everything. 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so whenever you try to use some statement which is resulting into 0, -0, null, blank string, undefined, or even not a number, they will all evaluate to false. So now this is the best case, or this is the best approach to use when you don't know whether this variable is initialized or not, or whether it is null or not, whether it is 0, or even in case if it is blank string, yeah, then also this case or whatever to write here will always be executed the way that we have seen here. So in case of Java or any other language, for example for null, you would be doing something like my var is not equals to null, then do this, right? Something like that. In case of here, you can just say my var, and of course negation of that, because my var is null, you want to do it when my var is not null, something like this. So of course in that, this is the same as the previous case where I said my var is not equals to null, then only it will print it. You don't have to write that much code. Conciseness is the key in JavaScript. So this is all about few of this data types. I will give you 10 minutes to go through all this again. Well, you don't have the slides, of course. I'm going to post the slides. In the meantime, you can go through these slides, understand different data types, and then if you have any question, let me know. Go. So yep, the file should be there, and I will also make it display on the screen. Yep, so try in the Plunker various examples and try it now so that you understand whatever I'm going to talk now or next onwards. Otherwise it will be too much to handle in a day. And in the meantime, if you have any question, let me know. Okay, so we are back and let's start again. If you have any question and if you tried anything within the last 10 minutes or so, let me know. Otherwise, I can start discussing other data types as well. Okay, so we went through undefined, null, string, and boolean, and let's talk about numbers now. So in case of JavaScript, of course, you can again use the constructor, number constructor, to initialize a variable with a numeric value, or you can just say n equals to some number. That should be fine. Of course, there are no doubles here, no floats, nothing like that, no complicated things, just number. That's it. You can use it, and then of course I would not suggest to go with this approach, because if you want to get the value, you have to use the value of again. So directly you can put a numeric value into your variable, or you can assign it directly without quotes. Of course, it is not a string. Whenever you use quotes, that means it's a string. In this case, it is a number. Now, if you use something like this, there is one added advantage if you use number. If the value is string, because the value can be string as well, JavaScript will try to parse that string into the number. If it is successfully parsed, meaning that entire string was a number, then of course all good. But if it's not successfully parsed, in that case, it will set a flag on n, and which is the not a number, nan. And then this is a global function, is nan. So you check whether the n is number or whether it is not a number. Then of course you can handle that one as well to figure out whether the value that was passed to you is proper a number or not. So let's talk, or let's see how it is working, or how it works actually. So you say, of course, 34, no points for guessing what it will print. Console.log. So that's the basic thing. You get 34, right? Now if you use new 34, or sorry, new number, meaning the number constructor, then if you just say my var, you will get the type kind of thing, or an object my number. To get the value, of course, you have to use value of, which is of course complex. Now, what if this guy is a string? So let's say this much string, and then you try to use it, then of course it will be able to parse it. I don't know why there was 0. Try again. So something like this. So if you are getting that variable from somewhere and you are not sure whether it would be a number or a string, just put it inside number constructor and you will get the number here, something like this. Now what happens if this is not a number and you have some garbage here, something like some string? In that case, your value is not a null, not a number actually. And how to test in this case, because you won't be printing, you have to decide, or you have to figure out whether this parsing was successful or not. So you can use something like is, and I can just make it work here, is nan, which is a global function, and say whether it's a number or not. So it says not a number, so whether this is not a number, so yes, this is not a number. That's what you can see. Or even on this, I think it would be the same, something like this, and it will say true. My var is not a number because there was some string. So this is your number constructor. And again, if you want to use some methods like toFixed, toPrecision, that this can be used because we have the same number constructor or number data type for handling floats as well. So you have something like this long decimal number or something. What you can do is you can fix the precision as well as the decimal point. So say something like toFixed, and you can pass. So you can pass a number as well here, which you are just saying, okay, how many numbers of decimals? So you said 2. So of course you will get 2 places of decimal with proper rounding. So if this number was 7, then of course you will get 2, 4. So you have the proper rounding up as well. So this is toFixed. If you want to get the precision or set the precision, then that is also fine. You can just use toPrecision and then by default it will take everything. If you want to fix how many 1 2 3 4 5 6, so let's say 6 number in total, 6 characters, and of course it will do that for you as well. So it's precision, you can use it. The to fix also you can use it. Now most of times you need a little advanced than just the number parsing, the default number parsing. So that's why you have two global functions, parse int and parse float, and both returns number actually. In case of parse int, there is an additional parameter which is radix, or the base of your number system, and the string is of course the string that you are passing here as well. So let's see how they behave and what is this radix doing here. And of course, you know, there are 4 number systems as of now in this world: the binary, octal, decimal, everybody uses decimal, and hexadecimal. So we can set the base as well to represent what kind of string is that, and then it, of course, it will return the number in a decimal format. So let's say we use parse int and we say, okay, the number is 10101010, I don't know, and it is a decimal, it's a binary, or it can be anything actually. So depending on the base, by default base, if you don't pass this, is decimal. So here, of course, if you get it, and since you have said this is a binary number, this one, so it will be passed into a decimal equivalent, which is 341. Of course, you can set to octal, it will be some bigger value, the 10, which is by default, so of course it will be 101010 only, and then hexadecimal, which is good. So this is your all decimal representations of this 4 number system in this case. Of course, no, most of the times you are dealing with decimals, so this is the way. Now what happens if you put string in between, or some non-numeric character actually, you should say. So unlike in case of we were using number constructor, if you put some garbage or non-numeric value character in between, it was just throwing off you an error saying it is not a number, or setting NaN on this one, right? Parse int and parse float, they behave little differently on that one. So if I put any non-numeric value, let's say t, then what it would do, it will try and parse until that, or until the first non-numeric value, and at that point it will just stop. So before that, it will convert into a number and return it to you, something like this. If it was of course at the first place, and of course in that case it will give you the not a number. But if it was any other place, it will at least give you the parsed part, the first parsed part. So that's what you are getting here. So this is your parse int. This is better approach than going with the number one again. What about the parse float? Well, in that case you can parse float as well, so with the decimal point here, and then you will be getting a number representation of that that string float. But of course there are no bases or radix in case of floating number, so no second argument here. Then again, there is something called math object in JavaScript, which you can use to, and it has methods like absolute, rounding, random, and all the trigonometric and logarithmic functions, which you will typically find in Java or any other language for that matter. So yep, there is a math object, you can directly use it, and then you can say something like console.log math.random, which will just printing you, which will be printing you any value between 0 and 1, something like this. This one is coming from here, so something like this. It's just like in the Java math random, it is the same similar thing. So that's all about the number. And then of course again, if you use this type, JavaScript will figure out what type of data that you are trying to assign to a variable, and it will work something like that. Now object, one of the most important data type in JavaScript, and that's why we will not discuss it now. We'll discuss it probably tomorrow. So yeah, we have object, and of course we will come back to it because that's entirely 4 lectures on object. Coming to arithmetic operators, or any type of operators, starting with arithmetic. So usual, we have plus, minus, multiply, divide, and modulus. Now this plus operator, this is interesting. because since we don't say what type of variable is this, unlike in any other language where you would say, for example, in Java, int x is equals to 5 plus 10, and then you know that okay, x is integer, so it will evaluate 15 and then put it in the integer. In case of JavaScript, I mean, you can use plus operator for numbers or addition, or as well as concatenation of the string, and that is an interesting choice. So let's see about this. So of course, if you add two numbers, then of course the result will be the addition. But if you add two strings, then the result will be concatenation or concatenated string, hello hyphen JavaScript in this case. So that's what, sorry, not hyphen, space JavaScript in this case. Now things get interesting when you are trying to use numbers plus string, or the other way, string plus number, or number plus string. Now can someone tell me what would be the value of z in this case, in the first case, and what is the value of xx in the second case? Because we are sure, okay, if these are two numeric values, of course we will get the addition behavior. If two are strings, we will get the concatenation. What happens when some values like this, other values are like this, or string a number, number and string? Okay, so far only one answer for z. What about xx? Okay, so several answers. Not sure if all of you are correct. So we'll see what we will be having. So again, two things are important in JavaScript: something related to operator precedence or execution, right, from left to right or right to left. Like in case of other languages, something is fixed. Here, nothing. So before that, let's talk about what operator precedence. JavaScript, every operator has different precedence. So don't worry, nobody will ask this question in the interview, because they will also go to this MDN website. Again, yeah, one quick question about MDN. Whenever you have any doubt regarding JavaScript, search or Google it, and if it says MDN, blindly follow it, because these are the guys after ECMA who are handling everything, or kind of supporting everything related to JavaScript things. So MDN, Mozilla Developer Network. Believe on them more than W3 schools. So yeah, this is the ordered precedence. So of course the precedence starts from here, and if they are on the same precedence level, of course it goes from here to here. So if you see the plus operator somewhere, and of course the direction as well, how that is evaluated. So addition is left to right, from this side to this side, I mean string 3 to numeric 5, and then where do we have a concatenation? Do we have it? Probably it's not, but yeah, addition is fine for us. So if you use plus, the direction is from left to right. For some of them, the direction is right to left. Don't worry. For example, conditional, almost all ternary operators are from right to left, including assignment, of course. Otherwise, it will be much different than the other thing. So let's talk about 3 plus 4 plus 5. So we have one string, then number, then number. So the answer is 3, 4, 5. The reason is, so it started from this place, right? When he said, okay, this is a string and this is a number. So when there is a decision to make between a string and a number, JavaScript say, okay, the output would be a string. So after this much, the answer was, or the it will try it as a concatenation. So it will be 34 at this time with the string. and then after that 34 string plus 5, then again one is string, other is a numeric. JavaScript say okay, I will concatenate it, so it will be 3 4 5 in a string. So that's what you see here. Again, if you want to do it even individually, so since it will start from left to right, it will be 34, and then you will say okay, 34 plus 5, then of course 345 of string. Again, this is not a number, so this is the one way. What about the other, where okay, 3 plus 4 plus string of 5? What about in this case? Yep, so most of you may have correctly guessed it. It's 75, and the reason is it started from here, so it evaluated 3 plus 4, both are numeric, both are numbers, so the answer is 7. And then as soon as we have 7, it will go again one level up and then say okay, numeric 7 and a string and the string 5, right? So the summation, or it will be concatenation now, so it was 75. So this is the thing in case of JavaScript. Another thing with the plus. Sorry. What is the value of this? 0.1 plus 0.2. Yeah, very easy question, but not the easy answer actually. Yeah, one answer is not 0.3. Yeah, of course it is not 0.3. It is 0.3, then long stream of 0, and at the end 4. Now this is very interesting calculation, because for all others, if you do something like this, they will all be proper. No problem with that one. Why I'm using this? Something like this. They're all proper. Just for this purpose, 0.1 plus 0.2, it is not equals to 0.03. So if you have any such calculation and you try to compare it with 0.3, it will always fail. The reason is because the way how browsers have understood the ECMAScript and floating points in the ECMAScript, and then everybody has, or all the browsers misimplemented the same, or especially with the floating point, so it never works. But again, that's the one thing that you should be aware. 0.1 plus 0.2 is not equals to 0.3 in JavaScript, but all other floating point numbers works properly. Okay, this is just this combination of 0.1 and 0.2, which is kind of misleading. Okay, so coming back to operators again, so we have logical operators, so we can use a double ampersand for AND, just like we use in Java, double pipes for OR, exclamation for not, nothing unusual there. What about conditional? So just like we have that short if clause, here as well we just evaluate the condition. If the condition is true, we go to the first value. If it is false, we take the second one. So this is short form of using if then else. So this is if, then this, else this, something like this. So yeah, I mean mostly we have similar in case of Java as well, so it is here as well. So it's very concise. If you think about if then else and you are writing if, then this statement and this statement, so, and then some braces and all these things, here it's single line. So again, question mark to separate the condition and the true value, and colon to separate true and the false, different things. So we can, or you can try this, for example, if not var my var, something like this. You have this and you want to assign values to some other variable. So you say my var equals to 1 or 0. Now tell me what would be the value inside sum in this case if I try to print sum. Yep, so the value would be 0, and the reason is my var, since it's undefined, it will evaluate to false, and then it will be the false value or the value with something else. For example, let's make it generic, otherwise something like this. So of course second value will be picked up. because this is undefined, and we have already seen undefined results in a falsify behavior. Same with the 0, minus 0, the same thing. Even if it is a blank, same thing. Okay, so I have one question from someone regarding concatenation and addition. So it says, okay, let me print. Can I print? Hold on. So the question is this, and the answer, okay, what is the question? Will it be 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 to my above question? Just have it. Yep. And the reason is you started from here, right? At least one was string, so of course everything will become string after that. So 3 plus 4 is 34 string, then 3, 4, 5, then 3, 4, 5, 6, then of course last one was string, so everything is concatenation here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. If you started with something like this, at least two numbers were not like this, then of course 7, 5, 12, 18, 181. Okay, so that was conditional. Now we will talk about this logical operator again, which is very interesting, and mostly you use the combination of your Boolean understanding of JavaScript and these logical operators to set the default values or some default values, of course. As at this point I haven't discussed about functions, but let's just have an overview. Nothing unusual. I mean, they are similar to any other sort of functions, except no return type. So let's say something like function myfunc, and we pass some value str, and that's how I defined it. Now I'm gonna call myfunc, and I don't pass anything. Okay, that's truly acceptable in case of JavaScript. You define arguments, but you don't pass it, unlike any other language like Java. Let's call it. Now what I want to do is I want to declare, I mean, most of the times you will be having this scenario where you will be declaring some internal variable, but the value of those internal variables will be dependent on the things that you pass. So you want to say something like, okay, something like this. Now you are not sure whether you have received a proper str or proper argument, because in this case nobody has passed you, or any null or undefined or zero or blink, all these things. So if you want to still put some default value in the myvar, well, of course in that case what you can do is you can use pipe up or the or operator and say something like, if this is true, or if it evaluates to true, then fine, assign it to myvar. But if for some reason it evaluates to false, and what are those reasons? 0, minus 0, null, blank, string, undefined, nan, and false. In all these cases, if str returns you false, just use the some default value like 1000. So if you run it now, and since you are not passing anything at this time, str will be undefined, and since it is undefined, your JavaScript will say, okay, this is undefined, I will go and assign the second one to the variable. So you will have console.log of myvar is 1000. The reason is because that's how you can assign default values inside anywhere. Now why it happens like this? Well, the reason is the simple logical computation. So when do we get true from an OR statement? So we can get true even if one of the argument is true, right? So we have t and true, of course it will be true or false, again true, false or true, again true. The only time it is false is when both arguments are false, in this case, or both operands are false. In case of JavaScript, the OR is evaluated from this from left to right, and most of the operators as well from left to right. So it will say, okay, if it is true, then I won't even go past this line. I won't even look into this, just assign it to myvar. Because if it is true, the entire OR is true, doesn't matter what is the second operand. Because any operand is true, then result of an OR is a true. So that's what happens here. if it is a false, then it will go and check the next argument, because if it is a false, then the next possibility can be that it may be false or it may be true. If it is true, then of course everything is fine, the entire expression is true. But if it is false, then the entire expression is false, of course. So that's how you can use that feature of OR conditional logical operation to make or to initialize your variables default using defaults or something. So yep, that is safe. Now you can assign anything to my where it doesn't have to be number, any default value, whatever, or even some objects. So in case of JavaScript, we use object like this. So yeah, we create object via using these braces. We will talk about in detail, but let's say you are working on the myAward, you are expecting one object from here, but you are not sending. In this case, you will just initialize to empty object. What if, go back to the previous case, what if you send something, for example, anything? Then in that case, of course, this was 3 assigned to str is now 3 is of course will not evaluate to false, so it is assigned to myAward. So this is of course getting you the 3. Okay, one of the benefits of understanding basic constructs of JavaScript or any other language for that matter. So you will find this type of logic, for example this one, in all of the plugins that you use for jQuery. This is the basic thing for options or handling different options in jQuery plugins. Another important feature. Now what about the AND operation? So that's also can be used, and if, for example, in this case, what would happen that again AND is just reverse of your OR. For something to be true out of an AND operation, both arguments have to be true. In that case, JavaScript will always test both of them. Even if this is true, then it will go and test this one as well, because if both are true, then only a proper decision can be made. If this is false, then of course it will get rid of, just get away from here, because if anyone is false, entire operation is false, so it will just move away from here. So in this case, we can use it just for the reverse. So we want to execute this setting. Let's say this is a function, or we want to set this one only when test me is true. In that case, we can use the AND operation. So if test me evaluates to true, then only settings is assigned to my setting, something like this, just opposite of this one. So that's how we can use logical operators using some tricks like this. Let's talk about comparison. This is interesting. So in case of comparison operators, in case of JavaScript, of course, you have usual less than, greater than, less than equal to, greater than equal to, not equal to, or of course equals to. Now this is called double equals to, or whatever you call it. This is, or this two actually, not equals to and double equals to are awesome in case of JavaScript. They behave awesomely. So, and their behavior, special behavior, is called type coercion. So if someone asks you some question regarding what is type coercion in JavaScript, this is the answer, or this is the explanation. What is that? So let's try with this one. In case of double equals to, it doesn't check for the data type. It just checks for, or it just evaluates the values. That's it. Doesn't care about the data type. And then of course there is some sort of type coercion, or we can say implicit typecasting. There is no typecasting in JavaScript, but at this point you just try to find words which you can understand, because you know what is typecasting in Java. So again, this is called type coercion, but something like typecasting. So in this case, what would be the result if I say if is dog in the string is equals to dog in the string, and I'm using double equals to? Of course it will be true, because the values are same. The double equals to operator only checks for the value, so it's true. What about 1 equals to true? So in case of JavaScript, this one, it will be typecasted into true, and then of course it will be kind of true equals to true, of course true. And this is the behavior that you may not want most of the times. You still want to compare the data types as well. One is Boolean, other is numeric or number. But if you use double equals to, then JavaScript will say, okay, this one, let me try to coerce it to a Boolean variable or to a Boolean value. So of course one can be kind of mapped to true. So of course it will say true. What about 2 equals to true? So of course, I mean, not every number can be termed as true. So of course only 1 equals to true works here. What about 0 equals to false? Well, this is also true because 0 evaluates to false. We just saw that, right? We have been talking about Boolean properties. So this is false, and of course false is equals to false. So it's true. What else? Yeah, interesting one. What about null equals to undefined? Now remember, one is object, other is just a primitive data type. But still, if you use double equals to, it will say true, which is not true actually. But just because there is a type coercion, and since both evaluates to false in conditionally, so that's why you see false equals to false meaning true. So yeah, that may be confusing, but this is how JavaScript behaves as far as double equals to or not equals to is considered or is concerned. Now how to get rid of this problem, or not the problem actually, one of the feature of JavaScript is this, but most of the times you don't want to use this feature. You want to check for the data types as well. In that case, there is another operator called strictly equal to, or usually people call it 3 equals to, whatever, or strictly not equals to. When you say strictly, that means you are asking JavaScript to check for the data types as well. So in this case, as you would have guessed, string dog is strictly equal to string dog. So yes, both are string, both the values are dogs. So of course it is true. What about 1 strictly equals to true? Of course not, because 1 is number, other is Boolean. So of course it is false. What about 0 is strictly equals to false? Of course not. So that's false as well. And what about this? So here it will say, okay, both the data types are different. One is an object, other is a primitive data type, so it's false, which is kind of makes sense now. So again, if you are not sure the value of one of the operand, just use triple equals to. It will make sure that it checks for the data types as well and not just the values like this. And similarly, you can use not equals to, which is just opposite of strictly equals to. So yeah, this is type coercion, important concept in case of JavaScript, and one of the most asked interview question as well. So yeah, this covers your type coercion. If you have any doubt here, ask me now. Okay, let's go to the control structures, or the for loops, or the switch loops, or the conditional statement. So of course here as well we have something called if, else if, just like we have in Java. We have switch statement, just like in Java, no change here. So that's one of the case I'm not going to cover. I mean, if you know Java or any C as well, then of course it's the same parentheses, same braces, everything, no difference. In case of loop, so we have for loop, the traditional, where we say, okay, initialize iterator, or kind of a iterating variables, I equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, same thing, console.log, whatever. So we have something like for loop. Now just like in case of Java where we have for each, here as well we have for in loop. So something like for, this has to be a list or an object, and then you take one value at a time, assign it to X, and then process X. Next time take another value into, put into the X, and then process it. Of course in this case this has to be some collection, and when I say collection, that means a list or an object, hash map or a list kind of thing if you are coming from Java. So yep, this is your for loop. Then again we have something for while loop as well, condition. You just, whenever it is true, it will go and run this code. So we have all this. Mostly you are just you are just fine with that. I have never used do while in JavaScript, sorry. So of course there is do while as well. Just like any other language, we have do while, at least it will be executed at least once, and then only it will check the condition, blah blah blah, all this. But yeah, now there is a peculiar difference between these two when it comes to looping over list or array versus object, array versus object. So we will talk about that at proper time, probably fourth class from now. But as of now, you can use any one of them to loop over array or object. So both are fine. Yep, error handling. So just like in case of Java, we have try, catch, finally here as well. They are rarely used by the programmers or the UI developers, but you should have a practice to use all this feature or constructs here as well. And then again we have something called throw, which is similar to Java throw, throwing some exception manually. So you can have that one as well. Okay, I will not talk about object. I will stop on error handling today, but I will give you example of try, catch, and finally before. So when do we have errors in JavaScript? Mostly when something is not defined or not available. So for example, you are calling a function which is non-existing. So you are saying, okay, call some function here, right? Now this function, you haven't defined it here and you are just calling it. So of course, if you run it, you will have some error saying on call reference error, my func is not defined, because of course you didn't define it. Now in some cases, let's say you don't know whether we have defined my func or not. This is just to give some example regarding try and catch. So what you can do is you can wrap it around try and catch block, just like you do for just like you do it in Java, something like this. And of course, what would be the E? Because of course there is no exception class for you. It will be just that normal error message that you saw here. Now we are handling it safely. So that's what you can do. So now if I run it, of course you won't see any error here. Instead you will see the reference error, which is this console.log. We are printing on line number 7, right? This is line number 7. That's what we are getting. So yep, this is an error object and we are saying, okay, the message is my func is not defined. There is a strict trace as well, just like we have in other language, but again that's just a string and some other object properties. So that's how we can handle if we are having some sort of exception. So we expect to have some exception here. Now mostly you won't be having that much, but what about some cases, special cases, like let's say you are trying to use local storage, right? You are just blindly saying local storage dot set item, blah blah blah, some key and some value, something like this. Now you know that this local storage guy is not available in IE7 or below. In that case, if you just blindly use it like that, it will throw exception saying local storage or is undefined, something like that, because it is actually not available in all those browsers, IE7 and below. In that case, you can put it inside try catch. So if it's not available, for example, then what you can do is you can implement something else here. For example, cookies, using cookies. Cookies are always available. This is not the best practice for using local storage, because right now we don't use try catch. We just say if window dot local storage and then figure out whether we want to use local storage or we will be going with the cookie way. So this is normally accepted approach, but yeah, you can do via this one as well, try and catch. And of course there is a finally, just like in Java, which will be executed all the time, irrespective whether you are coming from try or you are coming from catch. That's finally. So similar with the Java execution flow here as well. What about throw? So for some reason you said console.log, you said okay 1, then you say throw, and then your own custom message saying custom message, of course, something like this. We are throwing something, and then of course this will be unreachable code, because of course you are always throwing something, but still I wanted to show that it will never be executed. And then in that time you can just print the E, and E will be nothing but your custom error message, something like this. So now you get the one which is of course before throw, and then you are throwing, and then mostly you throw depending on some condition, if something is null, something is not initialized properly, all this thing. So you can throw conditionally using if conditions or all this. You can use your own message, or if you, when we talk about Java object, JavaScript object, you can just throw some JavaScript objects as well with proper values, like okay, error, I don't know, code 101 something, message blah blah blah, you can throw it, and then of course your catch will, or your E will now be having that object. But yeah, if you don't know objects, leave it, we will discuss tomorrow. So yeah, you can use the try catch just like you would use in case of Java. So here as well. So let's end it today, and then tomorrow we will start talking about the important things. One of the most important thing in JavaScript, which is object. Everything is object. There are no classes in JavaScript. So even inheritance is via objects. Okay. Any question? Let me know. Otherwise we can sign off from today, and then tomorrow I will start from this slide. I have already uploaded the slide on box.com, so you shouldn't be having any problem. And within few minutes from now, I'm gonna post CSS quiz on Google Doc, and I will provide you the link on Slack. And it should be due tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern. Okay, so thanks everyone. Let's join tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern. Bye bye.